We're back. It's Thursday, and we're here for another episode of the Ascend Business Show. I'm your host, James Jacoby, my co-host, Bill Walton. And in 60 seconds, we're going to get into a really good topic today on how to use social selling for your demand generation and client acquisition. We'll see you in 60.
Power to pay. Power to pay.
Always love the intro. It's fun. It gets you pumped.
I'm ready.
Let's do this. Let's roll. Let's talk some sales and marketing today with our B2B business world. I hope everyone's having a great week. It's certainly gone quick here at Ascend. And, we're going to get into some similar things we've discussed before, but we really want to focus with you today on this topic that you may have heard or thinking or even putting in your company, and that's demand generation for your client acquisition and brand awareness. So, Bill, good to have you back.
James, great to be here. We got a great slate for today. Let's jump in.
So, some things that we've seen really in the last 2 weeks with our own interactions on LinkedIn and in the marketplace with, top sales enablement executives, digital marketing executives, sales executives in these companies is everyone's recognizing that they need to move forward with a social selling sales strategy for their sales force. But what we're not finding a lot or not enough is a really good framework for how to do that. And there's all this new demand for demand generation to have that in your company, have someone do that. And so there's kind of like this what do you want? Wild Wild West or Oregon Trail, so to speak, of pioneering and trying to find all the right tech and all the right framework and integrations really quickly so you can put all this together and give it to your sales force and then say, okay, now go talk to a lot of people, social sell, and bring a lot of business. Go. Right? So how do you do that?
Yeah, and how do you do it where if the pandemic has taught us anything, and what clients and buyers continue to hope for, whether they articulate it or not, is a little bit more transparency, authenticity, and genuineness in the buyer-seller interaction. So one of the things we want to talk about today is the need to find the hybrid, the middle ground of doing everything manually and still trying to force the coffee talk meeting, so to speak, or the face-to-face meeting, versus some automated cadence that you might get the person's first name right and put a comma at the end of it and then have a message that's perfectly positioned and then be able to have repeated automated follow-ups and repeat messages, different types, language, but still where's the interaction? So in big companies, if you're on an internal desk, right, you've got SDRs, what have you, I get that. In the big enterprise software companies, I get it. It's the numbers game works in that dimension, but it still can feel tactical and transactional. And who are you actually reaching with those automated programs? So those are some things to think about as it relates to how to do the social selling, because if you think about those two words, social and selling, to me, the biggest word in that description is the social part. So that's what I want to really focus on today.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to throw some factoids in here as we go, because we want to address this, right? We want to talk about this and really um, look at this from different angles on why is this a challenge? Why do you want to do this? And maybe almost reset expectations for what this is really going to look like. Because it's a lot of times when we get in these conversations, right, it sounds really cool and it sounds like that we need this and we got to go, but there's got to be more to it than that, right? It's understanding what you're getting into. It's the strategy, then it's the implementation, and then actually executing it and giving the support to your team that they are going to need to achieve this. And listen, at the end of the day, all this is a learning curve. We're all in the same boat. No one's really, I think we can say at this point, like master, like so far ahead of everyone else. Like everyone's moving forward together in this, but we got to come up with some ways to enable your teams to adopt some of these new ways of thinking, new ways of executing, and make it simple so we can put them in the place to win. We want our people to win. And
that place to win is going to come from a realization, right? As salespeople, I'm encouraging everyone watching right now is to turn yourself inside out and think about, in the spirit of social selling, why are your buyers, existing clients, prospects, leads using social channels for their job? It starts with research. And as part of research, what are they looking for? They're obviously looking for a solution. Okay, but more than that, they're looking to validate some thinking that they already have.
Mm-hmm.
They're also looking for something that's clean. They want the straight dope. They want something trusted. They want a trusted source that can give me an unvarnished opinion, thought, window, point of view into whether it's a tech platform, whether it's an executive coach, whether it's the right ingredients for your supply chain. Everyone is looking to be validated and affirmed in terms of finding the right resource. And then after that, that's kind of the first step. The second step is credibility. Is this source or this individual or this organization credible? And I got to be honest with you, and looking as a trained eye in terms of value propositions, in terms of messaging, which is so important in social selling, I look at some of these software companies. You pick an industry, you pick cyber, you pick process automation, business process management. There's a lot of firms out there that have a uniqueness to their solution, but their messaging is not communicating that. So what you're forcing your buyers to do is to go out and get more research so they can figure out what you really do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where social selling comes in. We can control that for ourselves individually. The biggest thing you can control is when someone goes to your profile, you want to connect with someone, is have the right answer to view profile.
Exactly.
Because we're making decisions in a minute. So I'm with you, James. I think this is the right topic for today for sure.
Well, yeah, and this is why you see statistics like you see here on your screen. 65% of businesses say generating traffic and leads is their biggest marketing challenge, and there's a lot of reasons of why that might be. We want to first kind of big picture it and be like, all right, well, let's look. Do you have a website? How good is your website? Is it getting searched? Is it driving traffic? Because if that's not happening, then that needs to be looked at, of course, right? But then in terms of what you're saying here, right, the same thing. Your website on your social media, guess what? That's your profile. That's what your website is for social media. They're not going to go to your website at first. They're going to look at your profile.
That's right.
And that is your website. So if your website, which is your profile, is not designed properly, then you're going to be a statistic here. You're going to struggle with getting inbound leads, because this has to drive traffic and intrigue to start a conversation with you, and have them learn about you. And that's where this is all beginning from today. And this is where, again, this leads right into the next point, what Bill's saying, and for social strategy here, that goes right in with demand generation. This is why this is so important in the B2B social selling process today. It's a formal process. It's real. It's not a fringe, exercise, and you stick to your cold calling and the traditional email stuff. That's old hat. This is the new. We know for sure, we talked about this a week or two ago on the show, that the generation of millennials and Gen Z prefer by far over any other time in the 5 generations history that we know of, they prefer social media to buy and make decisions from. So we have got to take this seriously. We have got to put social strategy in the personal brand for your team and your company. But this is it. 93% of B2B companies say content marketing generates more leads than traditional marketing strategies. And that's the truth, guys. Like, content marketing has to be a pillar for your salespeople. They got to use content. They got to use content when they're online, and it can't be. And I'll make the argument. It's. I guess if you want to start here, it's okay, but it can't be just sharing your company's content from the company page. That's nice. But if you've been watching our shows, one of the things that we always talk about, and we'll probably talk about it today, and I'm going to bring it up right now, is point of view. Have a point of view. Have a point of view. When you are speaking points of view, it has so much power to it in your marketing, because people are thinking up here points of view that they have. And when they read yours and hear yours and it aligns, guess what? They instantly know this guy's got it figured out, or this guy is exactly what I'm thinking. I like this person. They're onto something. I'm going to lean in and pay more attention.
No, I love that. Maybe, James, we can kind of go to the how, right? If we're thinking about the topic of today is using social selling for client acquisition and demand generation, demand generation and creation. But let's talk about kind of where we start, right? You mentioned a little bit about content. Let's talk about platforms. Let's be mindful of what salespeople might have access to, whether it's LinkedIn, or they might have a sales enablement platform, or they might have a souped up CRM that can help them operate from. Where do we start, right? You're mentioning content. You're mentioning an approach. Mm-hmm. I mean, you've used some of the things that we've talked about, right? Googling job descriptions and getting real clear. Where do we kind of start this, right? If I'm going to wrap my head around social selling for this purpose, and I need to do it with speed, and I got to scale it, right? I think about some of the work that before you and I started working together, it would take us to get 10 LinkedIn first connections a week. It was like a 5-hour deal. Mm-hmm. And it was the follow-up, and it was, gosh, what do I say? And how do I do it? I mean, this is way too slow. And then I don't even know if the person is right. They look right. And I had no idea if they were socially engaged on the platform. They were just a static person in a profile. So let's talk about where we can help folks start, make this really meaty for them. Yeah,
it's a good question. I'm going to post it just here to as we talk about it. So where do you start, right? Well, Bill, you hit it on the nose. I mean, I love the exercise. We eat our own cooking, guys. I sent this to Bill the other day. We did some research for some potential people we want to talk to about doing something with, and we did some job description research. It is so helpful to see if you look at your ideal prospects. Let's say you have a top 25, and you look at your companies, and you look at the jobs they're posting, and you look at the departments that you know you can make an impact in for your product or service. And you search and look at those job descriptions of the folks that you're probably going to talk to as the decision maker. And you see what they're asked to do from leadership for the company. So you know then what's important in their mind, because they have to do that. That's their job, right? Looking at that and then seeing with inference, right? You can start to see, okay, this person's going to want to look for these kinds of solutions. Here's the problems that they're trying to figure out. And that's where we can start to build some really good messaging from in our headline, in our about summary, on our profile, and even in our content is really, really mirroring that person's job description and focus, and showing them, we hear you, we see you, we talk about this too in our company, and here's what we're seeing, and here's some methods of how to go about that. It's that thread the needle of, we see you, we hear you, we're on the same page. Here's what we're seeing. So they're like, yes, you understand me. here's what's needed. Number 2, and here's some methods on, maybe how to go about that. What do you think? Number 4. That's really the threading that all the way through. I just kind of summarized that fast, but
that's good. So I just want everyone to remember, social selling does not mean that you abandon all the work that folks have done in the era of value creation over the last 10 to 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is value creation is not value like a good value. Got a really good price and I got a lot of deliverables for that. That's not what we're talking about. Value is industry and role specific. So whether you're looking to sell to a financial professional, a senior IT professional, senior HR professional, those roles in those organizations, and depending on the size of the organization, will skew in a certain direction and by industry.
Mm-hmm.
Just think about from a talent perspective. Heads of HR and talent management are looking for different things in the consulting realm versus, really high tech IT, cybersecurity versus, the airline industry or pharma. And same with financial professionals. They look at cash flow and risk differently. And many of them touch differently the supply chain more intimately than others, where in some organizations it's still somewhat siloed. So, the nature of that is what you want to engage on, because that starts spawning topics of discussion. Like just say anyone listening today who sells to senior financial executives and companies, one of my favorite questions to ask when I get the chance is, how do you do it? Meaning, how do you stay prudent and implement effective cost controls and guidelines and guardrails, mind your P's and Q's, and try to manage your expenses while investing not only now, but for the future, and make those right bets and have those right bets aligned with the CEO's vision of the organization. That's what your senior financial people are being impressed with, in addition to controls. And if you're a publicly traded company, getting all the information that you need through the system and to your auditors to make sure that you're a going concern.
Mm-hmm.
So that lens of, okay, who is this person? Who's my ideal stakeholder? What do they care about? And by industry, that's why these job descriptions become so powerful, because the job description tells you what they care about. It tells you the scope of the job.
Yep.
And that's where you start driving your point of view from, and issues that you might want to probe, in addition to what might be trending, and also what the pundits are saying about that industry, or what this other person, and this is what James and I, the value that I think we're offering our clients is, we can help segment who's really active and has a point of view. Because the fantasy is you're meeting point of view with point of view. You're both, social selling is a saloon door that swings both ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just you offering, let me bomb you with my point of view, and here's link after link. Oh, here's a LinkedIn Live. Here's a podcast. Look at all of our stuff. Therefore, I'm social selling. Social selling is about dialogue.
Right.
And,
huge point there.
Right. Yeah. So, and that's where the speed comes in. We're going to talk about speed today, but that's the kind of the piece I wanted to infuse into the social selling piece. Is this is now wearing your business acumen hat.
Mm-hmm.
And be directionally correct and have a hypothesis of what my point of view should be, and where might I want to posit a challenge or a thought. And what I like about where LinkedIn is going is more and more individuals are doing that, either with polls or having a point of view, and the engagement's been great. And then the authors of these posts are continuing to engage, and we're serving the community.
Right.
And that's really what you want. That's when you know you're doing social selling.
Yep.
Because you're getting hit. The saloon door is coming back at you. And you're having.
I mean, there's a bunch of different ways to go about this, guys. There's no silver bullet, so to speak, to doing this, but there is strategy that you have to consider to make it more effective, right? Because what Bill just said so true. Like, if you want to do social selling as your strategy to grow a business and to grow brand awareness, if all you're doing is just sending out 1,000 emails with here's all my stuff, or here's my calendar link, can we meet? You're not social selling. You're marketing. You're marketing like email marketing, but on social media. That's the same thing. What we're talking about is different, right? People want to be understood, to understand you, right? You will not be understood if they don't feel understood first. And so it's really about asking a question that's relevant to your business, but also for theirs, where you have a lot of mastery to facilitate a really good conversation that would help them. That's what you want to do on social media. And now the challenge is, one, how do you do that? And then two, how do you do that at scale? And how do you do it fast? Because the other thing that you don't want to do, and we all know this, right, is we don't want to get lost in the weeds, not have a process, or have these conversations that we're trying to get kickstarted take 4, 5, 6 months. That's not speed, right? But then now we're kind of losing the edge of the whole thing, and it may or may not be that effective at all compared to phone calls or emails. So there's definitely some things.
Let's go there. Let's go.
Yeah.
You hit it right on the head, James. Let's talk about scale. Let's talk about fast.
Yeah.
So I think we talked about where to start.
Yeah.
It's kind of value creation mindset, right? Having a point of view, doing your sleuthing, really trying to understand that value creation model of, value is industry and role specific, and think about how we're matching point of views, and we can set up our nice saloon door that we're going to be able to now engage. How do we do it faster, and how do we do it at scale, James? Let's talk to our listeners about that.
Well, this guy's right. This is where sales enablement technology is the most amazing thing that is available to any company. And it's just been so much fun looking at all this just in the last even year of what's out there today in the marketplace that didn't exist 3 years ago, 5 years ago. It's really profound, but there is tech out there right now that you can use that does AI, AI, artificial intelligence, which it's not like a robot, right? What we're talking about is it's technology that's intuitive that can, let's say if you send a message to somebody and they respond to you, the AI can determine if the response was favorable or not favorable, or what the buyer's thinking about, or where the conversation's headed, and it will infer then to you what to do. That would be a use case of AI. In automation where you can program ahead of time certain things to occur, if then statements on decision tree type stuff of what happens in that situation. You can program automation sequences so that you can have more robust nurture follow-up to more people.
Mm-hmm.
So the use of that is at scale today in many different tech companies. That there's a lot out there, but you want to find your one that suits you, because this will help your productivity with your sales force. It will reduce your burden of administration and data entry activities, which no one wants to do anyways, right? And it just increases the speed and sustainability of just work that needs to get done, and puts your people then in more important, if we look at time management, the important box, it puts them more in the important box of what they need to do in their job versus all the mundane stuff that doesn't really do much, right? So you want to use AI tech, sales enablement tech to foster tools and tasks that help those things. And it changes the game then for speed and scale, because now you can have technology that you can talk to, not 5 people at a time. You can talk to 100 people at a time or 200 people at a time.
Right.
And the technology can literally point out where you're at in each person's process to know what's next to do. And so it just becomes so much easier to manage speed and scale for a salesperson with that kind of stuff.
I'm going to inject another noun into our verb conversation, if that makes sense.
Yes.
In terms of is quality.
Yes.
A lot of tech out there. I could probably rattle off 6 companies right now that could get you a really fairly clean lead list that could be directionally correct, and probably half the leads on the list would be worthy of your effort.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't help you with speed. To me, 50% is not high quality, but let's just say you got verified emails and you'd have a person behind those emails, but you're still going to have to qualify and lead nurture and bring that home. And at scale, salespeople don't have the time to do that today.
Right.
And what quality, there's a different definition of quality. That's not just a verified email address. Oh my gosh, they're there. Oh, whoa. Quality is different today. Quality is, again, coming back to that equation, value is industry and role specific. And are they active? We meet a lot of clients that aren't interested in our point of view. They're still buying like they're in 1970. Hey, what do you got? No, I don't want that. What do you got? No, no, wrong nail. I got this huge hammer. Wrong nail. What do you got? What do you got?
Right. But that's not most of our generation today. That's the future.
And typically, if someone's engaging socially, there is an interest and there's a reason, whether they're in the research phase, buying phase, or they made a decision and are looking for, a little back pat on it. But the quality piece is key. So one of the things you want to be able to do is what is your winnowing process of deciding who is right, right? Really defining what a lead is. And then you have to have some technology to be able to source those right leads that will translate into some system for you to for you to do your outreach.
Yeah.
So the scale is the quality piece, the quantity piece, and the rate at which you can establish and earn the right for the social engagement. And you and I both know we try to do this with our own savvy, working hard. Hey, I can type really fast. I bought some of these platforms. I bought a seat, and I'm still here spinning all these plates under a tent, like wondering who's ever going to talk to me.
No, you're right on. You're right on.
I mean, that's why we exist. I'm biting my tongue so we don't start talking about Ascend AI capabilities and what we do. But, we're going to encourage you to find solutions that can inject those pieces that James and I are sharing with you, the quality piece.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you've got to find a source of information and inspiration and insight so you can start developing this point of view. Once you have that and you're passionate about it and you want to share certain things and you found your groove in the road, what you're seeing as a pebble in the shoe that you and your organization and your solution can remove or at least winnow down. Once you have that, you're going to be on fire. We will set you loose because now that's an issue worth talking about, and I know a little something about it. And that's when you're ready. The skids are greased for social media and social selling, social interaction, because now you're talking about meaty issues that mean something. And you can have a dialogue around that. And hopefully that's a dialogue that aligns well with what your organization does and your own personal credibility.
And I gotta share these I got a couple factoids to share on this as we finish this thought out. But here's one. So outbound leads cost 39% more than inbound leads. This is a huge benefit to have a good demand generation strategy in place. And what we're talking about here with social selling. You will reduce the cost and time and money you're spending on lead acquisition. Huge. I love that statistic. The other one here, I did a survey a month ago on LinkedIn. What's the number one thing you'd love to change in your sales to make it better? And the number one answer was, I want a bigger deal size. I want larger deals. Well, guess what? If you want larger deals, you need to have better lead nurturing. And that's a part of demand generation. You got to lead nurture better. How do you lead nurture better? You got to have these pieces of tech in place, but you also have to be like real time, in these conversations. When people show interest, there's got to be speed to your response time to engage and continue it. And the more relevancy you show in your content marketing, the more they will understand the broad and micro scopes that you can help them with in their business. And really that's going to help you position a larger deal because you're solving bigger problems with the more you show different dynamics of what you can do to help their business through your social engagement. So nurturing leads is huge for getting bigger deal sizes. Thought that was interesting.
What are some of your favorite ways to nurture, James? It's kind of like the word culture. If you put 10 folks up against the wall and said, hey, give me your definition of culture. I'm thinking we get the same dynamic with the term nurture. Let's give the folks kind of a window into our thinking on nurturing.
Yeah, right. So, some people, we all know this, some people that when they first engage with you, the truth is they've probably been watching you for a while, but then they decided to start talking to you. That's usually what happens in buyer cases. It could happen where you watch this live today and you're like, wow, this is exactly what I was looking for and talking about. I want to talk to James after this. I mean, that happens sometimes, right? But more times than not, they've been watching your content for a while. Hopefully you're putting it out there. And if you want to nurture, you want to respond back in timeliness to the engagement, the first part of the conversation when it first started. Start the conversation first. And if it stalls out, if you're not getting anywhere, you have different ways to nurture it, right? Start it back up. Ask a question. If it's been a week or a day or, it's dying out, and you haven't gotten to, hey, let's talk about business yet. I want to work with you. You're still getting there. Ask some really, relatable questions that would go down that path of, yeah, I think we need to talk about this more. I'd like to learn more about how you help us with that. So start asking questions through direct message, putting another post out, shoot them an email. There's different ways you can interact. But you gotta make sure that you're thinking about it at all times. People are on here all day. So if we're not looking at how to nurture and connect on text message or DM, really those are the two hottest ways to really make sure you're connecting today. Emails getting a little murky. We all delete most of our emails every day. So I would not put that as a top method to nurture. Texting and DMing is definitely much higher for response.
And let's talk content. I mean, I'll be honest with our audience. Selfishly, we're doing these lives because, well, not selfishly, unselfishly, we want to give back to the community. We believe a giving hand is always full. We love this industry. We love sales enablement. We still carry the bag, and we love developing people and coaching and offering. And we've got that joy of helping. That's just what we do. We chose to do life that way.
Yep.
But a product of our any of the podcasts that you're listening to, our lives, our executive briefings, that's content, and that's content that's valuable. Issue fluent, topical, issue-based content that you can send a link, found this video, found a great article, right? We do this all the time for clients, and we literally read the article. We don't just say, hey, look at this, I found it for you, and shoot it off. It's, hey, and it's not 3 bullet points out of here's what I learned from it. It's, I thought this was really interesting. We need to talk about this. Did you hear what they're saying about that data point? Right? The future of talent, the race for talent that's happening in tech, whatever that is. Here's my thoughts on that. I'd love to get yours.
Mm-hmm.
So content, yes. And what I think about the letters V and V, varied and valuable. That's why we just don't do lives. We do our executive briefings.
Yep.
Online. We're doing our podcast, which is now available on Spotify, Apple iTunes, and 4 other platforms, which is great. And we're doing other things. We're publishing, and we've got our blogs are getting richer on our website. We have that. We're posting certain things on LinkedIn to share with our audience in the globe, and we're consciously doing that because we believe that it's our job. If we're saying to you to start a dialogue and nurture, we need to start the dialogues and nurture. Right? We're creating the dialogue. Right? I like to think we're putting a footprint out there in terms of how to do digital selling and us as a resource. I think we have a point of view only because we've been doing it, and through trial and error, we know it's working.
Right.
And what technology is worth your money and worth your time. So, don't forget that. But, and the manner of touches, right? Think about if you're working a business cycle as a salesperson in 60 or say 90-day chunks, for example, think about this concept of a 90-day dash, right? How would you, if you had to think about it, take 6 to 7 touches to get meaningful contact with a prospect? And that's somewhat traditional sales and marketing. Social, it's different, but let's just say it's several touches, say 5 to 7. What would you use? How could you create a stream of consciousness with someone so they can get to know you before they even know you?
Yes.
And get a sense for what you stand for and what you believe and the quality of your thinking and your access to talent and resources and the fact that you're well read. That to me is a selling point because now I'm intrigued. Now I want to listen. Hey, you know what? Now I'll take that 15-minute pop-up call, pop-up Zoom. And don't diss the 15-minute Zoom call. There's a lot. James and I had a call this morning with a potential colleague, hopefully a client, that went swimmingly well. It was great that we had a great conversation, and maybe it was 12 minutes, and it was worth our time. It was worth their time. So,
yes. And oh man, you're making me think of something real quick that I want to bring up. Because this has happened a few times now, just in the last week, for us, is, ask, get some help from your prospect or your person that you're talking to. You don't have to have all the answers and all the research and just kind of hope for the best. Like, just ask them. Like, literally today we're on this call, and I started to talk for a second, and he was generous enough to pause, but he's like, "Hey, sorry, I didn't really give you a lot of scope to what I wanted to know from you. Here's my situation. Here's what's going on. Here's what I do. I'm looking more for information on this." Like, ask your prospect for where do you want this conversation to be focused? Help me understand your situation better, so I know what to share with you that's meaningful for you, so I don't waste your time, right? Because people don't want a long answer that doesn't land. They want something short, concise, that hits the mark on what they want to hear from you. So just ask them, where do you want me to focus, our conversation today? And that will allow you to land the plane much quicker. In this call, I had to do it in about 60 seconds. But the 60 seconds was perfect, because then it resulted in, oh my gosh, that's exactly what we need to have. And then that elongated to, another 15 minutes after that. So that was big.
Yeah. And so, as coming back to nurturing now, so let's think about this cadence, right? As you start the nurturing process, as you're inviting inquiry, one of the things that I've found that really gets people to take action socially, to get that saloon door to swing both ways, is, and this has been years now, I've been studying this behaviorally, asking people for coaching and advice, to me, just has them buckle at the knees. It's almost this human decency thing kicks in, that, oh, someone's asking me for my opinion. Someone's asking me for advice. Someone's asking for me for coaching. That is one of the greatest compliments you can pay anyone.
Yes.
And it works in the social setting, as long as you're authentic and it's related to the topic and the issue fluency that you need for that person and that role in that industry. And that's how you start to build a dialogue.
Yes.
And it's okay to be a little vulnerable. Yeah, because you know what? I'm struggling. I'm struggling to put a thought together on how our organization should go about motivating talent, or finding reliable sources of supply for our supply chain and our value chain, whatever the issue would be, or reducing our carbon footprint, right? All the great sustainability efforts that organizations are doing, making them very strategic, by the way, which is super, certainly in our space and time for the communities in which we work. That's awesome work. But that's where social selling can get really disarming and leverage your authenticity and vulnerabilities. Ask them for some advice. Ask for some coaching. Here's what I'm seeing, but you know what? I just don't feel I have the complete picture.
It's so good that you brought that up, Bill, because what you're also saying there is that you're not limiting the value of that connection, that relationship, for them to buy from you. There could be way more to that. They could teach you something that you could learn from. They could say, whoa, I really like you. You know what? I don't necessarily need what you have or what you do, but now because I understand you, you're likable, you're respectful, and I know folks that could benefit from this. I'm going to share this with them, So there's so much more, going back to the value of relationships and connections, that you can foster and create really quickly if you can talk and stay on the right talk tracks of value creation for both people and have it be mutually beneficial. And it just, again, when you ask questions like that around, hey, can I have your advice on this? Of course, they're going to want to say, well, yeah, here you go. Here's what I think. And that will also let them have the chance to say, I want to know more about you. I'm going to ask you some questions now. I'm interested. You're not selling me. You're engaging me. And that's a big difference.
That is a big difference. And so that's kind of when you're in the meat of the social conversation. Let's maybe, James, if we can shift, I'm looking at our time now to segue to, how do we make social selling? How does that eventually segue to a conversation about something potential, an interest in solution or an interest in a deeper conversation, is I think of the messaging framework that we've been talking about for social selling. I call it the I, what, you statement.
Mm-hmm.
When someone says, hey, I'd love to learn a little bit more about what you do. So typically, and I believe in the power of three, it's just magical for me. It's so helpful. But the I is, if you had to think about some messaging or to very crisply, very quickly describe who you are and what you're doing and the essence of the level of the nature of the engagement, is the I, what, you statement. The I is who you are and who you work with and what kind of problems you address and what needs you're solving in the spirit of the industry you're in. So that's the I. The what is, it's kind of a double what, is what you're actually doing and what clients would say the value is that you're adding, why they want you, continue to have you involved in their affairs.
Mm-hmm.
Clients continue to work with us. Clients, purchase our solutions for their ability to continued ability for them to be able to exceed, meet, drive, whatever they want to accomplish. That's the credibility statement, often left out of messaging. And it's what you, and that's depersonalizing the value. It's not about me, what I would say, or what my website says, or my press release byline says. It's why clients continue to come to us. I think why they rely on me personally too. Don't leave yourself out of this conversation as the seller, as you as keeping yourself at equal business stature. Then the third piece is the you, why I thought you would be interested. We're talking to folks in sales enablement. We're talking to folks in supply chain that have really a strategic role now because their customers are really sales and marketing and manufacturing. They can't just buy the cheap stuff. It has to fit and it has to work. It has to align. So I thought you would be interested because I'm seeing folks in your role continue to be concerned about X, continue to want to accomplish Y, still have the pebble in their shoe X that it's keeping them from being at their fullest. And they're all striving for perfection, but many of them are a couple steps away from it. And here's what we found. Here's what I'm seeing. And that's what I love to talk to you about. Right? It's not what you've got, it's what you're seeing. You're not going from showing, telling, presenting, you're going to sharing. And those are two value creation distinctions that still have to happen in social selling.
Huge. I'm going to let this play across the bottom because we're running out of time for the show today. So if you love what we're sharing with you and you want to know more, or if you want to just expand on this and have us look at what your messaging is or how you're approaching your social selling strategy or digital demand generation strategy, we'd love to talk with you and give you some feedback. So take us up there. You can go to ascendadvisors.com, schedule a free marketing audit for you and your business, and we'd love to speak with you. But yeah, I mean, that's it. That everything you just laid out there is right on the money, and that's what we have to continue to train on and execute and just sharpen as a skill set, because this is a skill. This is a skill of how to communicate effectively that your social media buyers want to have with you. This is the conversation they want to have. And fortunately, there's not a lot of people that are doing this very well. So you're in rare air if you just do this of what we're saying, and you will see the results if you just try it out and stick with it. So, Bill, thank you so much for joining me today on the show.
Thank you, James. Love being with everybody. Thank you so much.
And we will see you next time on the Ascend Business Show.